And these type of girls typically get passed around. These this is
So
a disappointment in your face.
Yeah, so I actually have a name for these types of girls. I call them the welcome squad. So the
Mm,
welcome squad it's usually a girl that has intimacy problems,
mhm.
and the welcome squad is, people go to the country, and then here's the welcome squad, the really cute girl that seems really excited to meet you. And when you travel enough places and enough length of time, you'll realize that the girls that go after the foreigners, it's fool's gold.
Yeah.
Because what you're really doing is you're meeting the welcome squad. These girls welcome anybody.
Yeah.
And they just have weird intimacy problems. And they kind of like just bounce around from like new guy to new guy.
Yeah.
And a lot of guys will go to foreign countries. They'll meet the welcome squad, which is just a fancy way of saying a girl who's extremely promiscuous and has no standards.
Yeah.
And then they'll brag about her, and then they'll run around saying that all the girls in that country are that way.
Yeah.
And the truth is, John and I have traveled enough where we have kind of a sixth sense for these types of women.
Yeah, in Japan they call them gaijin hunters.
Yeah, gaijin hunters.
Gaijin is the word for foreigner in Japan, and I have hooked up with girls that I found out later that my friends had slept with. Like, I found out later. So you think you have like this special, unique, amazing girl, but the reality is the pool of women that most foreigners have access to is a limited resource. And in my opinion, these women, they're not the best quality, right? Some of these girls, like the other day, we were here and David was, there's some girl that knew David, and there was this some Eskimo brother situation that he was just at dinner. He's like, oh, what the,
Yeah. Well, that's a big part of the process of screening.
Yeah.
A lot of guys.
Try not to say too much to get you in trouble. Yeah.
A lot of guys live in scarcity,
Mhm.
and so the concept of screening is a foreign concept to them.
Yeah.
Right. Like, screening is something that you would do if you have so many options. You want to weed out the bad, so I call it like the apple tree, right? If you're starving and you are hungry, like, you're willing to just go under the apple tree and like just eat the apple on the floor.
Right.
But if you're running an apple factory,
right,
you'll have a system to weed out the apples that even have a small bruise.
Right.
Right. So to be like an apple factory, you have to have a lot of apples. And a big part of dating is like generating leads. And when you generate a lot of leads, you have to develop a screening process.
Right.
A lot of my students in other programs, they'll land in these countries and they don't realize that they actually have more options than they realize. And they meet these girls that are like the welcome squad. Some of them are like pretty trashy, but they don't know because they've never had to think that way. They're like, oh, she's cute enough. Like, let's rush into it.
Right. They're not, because they're just used to the land whales in America. They're like, oh wow, like a skinny girl that's friendly. And then, but it's the worst feeling in the world too. Like when you date a girl abroad, and this happened to me, this happened to you. Like when you date a girl abroad, you think she's special, you think she's unique, but then you kind of get red pilled abroad on these new factors, and you're like, oh God, this girl has like slept around a lot. Because you kind of like, you see what you want to see because you're not really keen to the realities of being passport bro and traveling.